Hey, everybody, welcome into the Jackson Sun Rural West Tennessee Football Podcast. I'm Brandon Shields, and if you read the Jackson Sun, you know who I am and what I do. I cover the high school football beat for the Jackson Sun, and this is week one. So let's go ahead and jump into it because we've got 20 games this weekend starting Thursday, going all the way through Saturday. So let's see if we can go ahead and kind of jump into them all, discuss them all in the next few minutes, and just kind of cover everything going on in the area. Starting on Thursday, Dresden is at Westview, and kind of what's almost become a traditional official kickoff to rural West Tennessee football. They hadn't played every year on Thursday, but I think 3 out of the last 5 years they have played on Thursday night. So it's been the official kickoff. Dresden comes in probably with the highest expectations of any team in rural West Tennessee. They finished in the quarterfinals last year. They finished second in Region 7-1A. They spent a lot of the season ranked in the top 5 from last season. Dresser win, their quarterback won Mr. Football, and pretty much everybody except for maybe 1 or 2 guys who contributed to that team last year, they're all back. So there's a lot of reason to think that they're going to have a very high quality season. Westview, on the other hand, lost a lot of their talent and ability to graduation, particularly on the offensive side. So there's a lot of question as to just kind of how good they're going to be this year. They're in a good region. They've got a new coach. Trey Cantrell has been there for over a decade, assisting Don Cody. Cody resigned back in the spring. Cantrell is putting his own stamp on the program, but there's a lot of question about kind of what he has to work with. Plus, they have a very tough schedule to begin with, starting with Dresden. Then on Friday, we've got 18 games going on in the area, starting with the Biggie at Liberty as they host Henry County. This has been a matchup that's been going on for nearly a decade now. I know former Liberty coach Steve Hookfin, when he started scheduling this game to start the season, the point was to just try to gauge his team to see exactly where they are and how good they are and what they need to work on early in the season, what their weaknesses are, and so far that's this game has served that purpose. Liberty may take a loss in that first week, but they know what they got to work on to get better. And more times than not, that has happened. Last year they got a win, and it was kind of the coming out party for the team that wound up going 13-1 and finishing in the Class 3A semifinals. So Henry County, is going to want to have they're going to have their focus on kind of returning the favor this year, picking up a win. But Liberty, with their 4 Division One offer guys, all coming back from last year. Corey Newble at quarterback, Rodney Castile at receiver, Alec Long at defensive back, and Elijah Harris at defensive lineman. Plus, there's a new running back who transferred over from Chester County in early August. That was a big question for the Crusaders coming into the season, so having him there with his experience, that will definitely be a help for Liberty. Peabody is at Milan in a matchup of one of the oldest rivalries in rural West Tennessee. Plus, it's been 2 of the most successful teams in the area in the last couple of years. Peabody with its state championship 2 years ago. It was in the 1A semifinals last year. Milan was in the quarterfinals last year after making the semifinals the year before. They've combined for 13 playoff wins in the last 2 years. Nobody's come close to that. Milan's 5 playoff wins in those 2 years is second best in the area, behind Peabody's 8. But Peabody comes in with a totally different team this year. They lost 23 seniors, so there's a lot of questions about just kind of how good they're going to be. They're probably at least good enough to finish 3rd in Region 7 3A, but that's not a definite. So they definitely want to come out and make a good showing. Milan is a little more. They just look a little more secure as far coming into the season, with Anthony Ballard and J.P. Porter coming back at the running back position. Their big offensive line, Lamartez Brooks at receiver, he had a good showing in the Jamboree last week. So Milan will be just looks to be a little better coming in. South Gibson and Jackson Christian. This was a matchup last year where South Gibson had a new running back that had moved in literally the week of or the week before they played Jackson Christian last year, and Dre McAllister. He came in, didn't play a lot because he was still learning the playbook and stuff, but when he did touch the ball, he made things happen. Because Tyler Dysart is no longer on the team at South Gibson, Dre's role on the team is obviously about to increase, as is pretty much every running back on the depth chart. Jackson Christian comes in with a lot of experience on the offensive side, particularly in the skill spots. There are no seniors up front, so they're going to be young. But the experience of those skill guys, that'll definitely help. And as far as they're trying to move the ball down the field. Adamsville and Chester County, this is a quality matchup in the southern end of our area. Coverage area between two teams, kind of like Henry County and Liberty earlier. They've been playing for a few years now as another good gauge to see just kind of where they both are going into the season. Adamsville, they've taken losses in the series, but more times than not, that's when they've taken those losses to begin the season, they don't lose again until after Thanksgiving when they get to the semifinals or even the Cookville. So they both have questions in their backfield. Chester County just lost Christian Ballard after transferring to Liberty. Adamsville's running back Dylan Worley broke his leg. He's possibly out for the year after breaking his leg against Munford in a scrimmage. So they'll both be trying to answer questions just about just kind of where their ground game is going into the season. Scotts Hill and McNary Central. They're playing in Selmer. Last year we thought Scotts Hill was going to win this game. That they came in the favorites, but McNary Central played their best game of the year. They only got 2 more wins the rest of the season. And Scotts Hill had a hard time hanging on to the ball, particularly or catching the ball, and dropped a few big passes that would have gone for long gains, if not touchdowns. And that's something they're going to try to do a better job of this time around. St. George's is a TCA. Blake Butler wanted to put St. George's on at the beginning of the season 4 years ago to give some teams that were about to come through TCA a chance to just see how good they were going to be and give them a good test. In 3 games with St. George's, TCA has won once. St. George's won pretty big last year, so TCA is going to try to do its best to keep it close with the defending state champion from Division 2A and come out with a win. And you know, TCA the last couple of years has had obvious Mr. Football candidates before the season started. They don't have that this year, so it's going to be just kind of intriguing to see what they try to do against St. George's. McKenzie hosts Dyer County. McKenzie lost this game last year, and a big reason for that was they had a hard time hanging on to the ball. Had a few fumbles last year that really hurt them, and they've got a younger offensive line this year and a new quarterback, so they're going to do their best to try to make sure that any problems they had last year at the end of the season will be taken care of. Camden goes across the Tennessee River to Waverly in the only matchup this week in the area of defending region champions. Camden won 6-3A, Waverly won 5-2A, and hosted games and first-round games in the playoffs. Camden lost this game last year. The coaching staff knows that Waverly is one of those games that the fan base definitely wants to win, and just because of those bragging rights, there's a lot of people who work together, go to church together, and they want to make sure that they're able to brag about that win for the next 52 weeks when they go into work. West Carroll and Brewston, they're former District 13A rivals. They're Carroll County rivals. They're 2 of the smaller schools that have football teams in the entire state. So both of these teams will be testing their conditioning in the game this week. Xavion Johnson is Brewston's really fast running back. Chance Towns is West Carroll's really big offensive lineman. So those are a couple of athletes to watch in this game. Brewston got the win last year, but West Carroll had a hard time getting the season started after just kind of everything they went through in the summer with the death of a teammate and a coaching change. So they're looking for a better start to the season this year. Fayette wears at Bolivar for the only region game in the area this year, or this week. In 8-3A, Bolivar wants to compete for the region championship. Fayette came a game short of making the playoffs last year. So they both want to get off to a good start to try to achieve both of those goals that they each have. USJ hosts the First Assembly Christian School out of Memphis. This was a tough matchup for the Bruins last year. FACS did a good job of keeping USJ from scoring. There wasn't a lot of scoring. I think USJ won 16-0 last year, but they had to score a couple of times late to kind of pull away. FACS will bring in a lot of athletes that will make it tough to get a win in Rusty Bradley's first game as head coach. Southside's at Obion County. Both of these teams are expected to have a tough time trying to compete in their region, so starting off with a win will be big for whoever comes out with the victory. Southside needed a turnover and a late touchdown to get the win last year in Jackson. Humboldt will try to get a second straight win at Fairleigh, this time on the road. They need to finish better than what they did last year after holding off a comeback by Fairleigh to win by 1 point. Gibson County is at home against Zion Christian. If they can get a win at home with their new head coach in front of their home crowd, that will be a great start to the season for them. They won 4 games last year, but none of them were region games, so they want to get off to a good start and build some momentum for the region play. Middleton is at Rossville Christian. There won't be many times that the Tigers have a advantage as far as depth goes, but this will be one of those times. Plus, also, Middleton has more stability on the sideline with their coaching staff. Rossville Christians has changed coaches every 1 or 2 years for the last few years. So this should be one that Middleton wins. Greenfield and Gleason host Fulton City, Kentucky, and Fulton County, Kentucky. Weakley County has a good chance of sweeping this pair of games here. This was the one game that Gleason won last year, so they definitely want to try to continue that streak over Fulton County. Greenfield has a chance of having a good season if they need to get off to a good start. Obviously, this game is important for that. Riverside is at Perry County. They go across the river, and Perry County went winless last year, so they definitely want to try to end that losing streak. Whereas Riverside wants to return to the playoffs with their new head coach Johnny Frost coming over from Moore County. On Saturday, Northside will travel to Murfreesboro to take on Oakland in a big weekend showcase going on at MTSU. They will kick off at 7 o'clock. Oakland is a Region 6A or a Class 6A semifinalist from a year ago that has a lot of college scholarship offer athletes on their team. Northside's coming in as a heavy underdog in this one, but that's not really anything that they're really worried about. I was in their field house last week talking with them about the game, and pretty much the message that they said was it's 150 miles from Jackson to Murfreesboro one way. They are not making that trip just to roll over for a bigger school. They don't care what the pundits say. They don't care what the expectations are. They're going to compete, hopefully pull out a win. I do know that if they were to pull off this upset and Liberty pulls off the win against Henry County, there's going to be a lot of people interested in that game between those two teams in week 2. Definitely Northside is definitely want to make a name for itself early on. That pretty much takes care of the schedule for week 1. I appreciate you listening. If you have any questions or comments or just anything you want to start a conversation with, you can email me at bjshields@jacksonsun.com, or you can tweet me at JSEditorBrandon. But thanks for listening to the Rural West Tennessee Football Podcast here on JacksonSun.com.